Hi, and welcome back again. I am your host, Ryan Keys, and you're listening to the show In Deep Shift. If you're following this on YouTube, please go to Spotify and sign up over there at In Deep Shift. You can send comments and you can even leave a audio message. Also, please check the links to my Instagram where I do a lot of live videos. And if you have not checked out my book, Putting the Soul Back in Soulmates, Love, Sex, and Dating, it's available on Amazon. Also, I'll be putting out a new website here pretty soon, and we're going to be diving in tips and tools on meditation. So what is In Deep Shift about? It is a show about shifting your reality right now and doing away with a lot of dogma. There's a lot of it out there. So we're going to do some real talk on topics and provide tools for you during this transformation, offering a mindful approach to creating more love and happiness and clarity during your conscious awakening. Today, we're actually going to talk about consciousness in a way that's a little bit different. We're going to dive into what might be happening in the world. And you've heard the term shift. It's in my show. Holy shift. So we're going to talk about that right now. And I appreciate you being here. Please like and share this so we can beat the alien intelligence, the AI, the algorithm. You only do that by smashing the like button and sharing it to your social media. And please subscribe and click the bell by the button so that you get notifications when you know that I'm online. Do a lot of lives. Try to do a live every Tuesday and Thursday night. Thursday night is real readings, and be looking forward to a lot of things coming up in June. Today, the shift. What is it and how is it affecting you, and how do you recognize this? And I wanted to just throw this out there as we start into this series about shifting reality and about how the 3D is transmuting into a much more fifth dimensional experience. When we think of the word karma, think of it in a different way. It's codependent consequences. Consequences come from actions. So you are not necessarily having to pay back past penalties because the past doesn't exist. The past has become present. Everything that fuels your lessons that you may have not learned in a previous lifetime, it has shown up in spades here. It has shown up to support that learning process right now. So you don't really have to dive in too much and to punish yourself for past lives. It is great to understand those. I myself do a karmic reading to kind of locate some different information factors in past lives, and then also do a south and north node so you know where you're headed in the next lifetime. You can check those out on my website, ryankeys.com. So when we're looking at this and we're diving in, let's just look real quick, what is consciousness? And consciousness is a term that is meant to kind of describe awareness. And awareness is going to include the self, the soul, sensations, thought, environment. It is the opposite of unconsciousness, which we think indicates kind of this senselessness, this barrier to us being able to make a conscious decision or a decision thus far. So it's a little bit of a ladder effect. It's a little bit of like when you're asleep, you feel that you're unconscious, yet you're dreaming, and you're actually conscious in a lucid state of your dream. You're crossing into parallel lives. We're going to get into that at some point as well, that you're actually living multiple lives right now, and some of these things are crossing over in your experience, and that's why you might feel that instantaneous rapport. You might feel that someone is weighing heavy on your heart. You don't know why, and there's no really reason why they should. It could be that you're sensing parallel lives as we're blending in more levels of awareness, as we're increasing our psychological gifts, as we're increasing our sensory perception. Now, there are levels of awareness. There is low awareness, which is where you're constantly receiving and evaluating sensory information, kind of like a computer system. You're gathering things on a mental state. Mentalists like to use these kinds of different things to help you become reactionary or to help you in a reflex kind of thing. They place cues in certain situations. The media uses it. Advertising uses it. Freud exploited it. So it's a very interesting concept, the low awareness, that low level of awareness, and it is something that is tied to fight or flight, and it is something that is easily utilized to stimulate and to drive people that are living a little bit unaware, only conscious but using the past as kind of the provocateur of where they're experiencing it. We experience in this as well as a lot of priming or activating certain concepts, and people do this. They do a lot of priming. We see that in the news media, and that's why we're having such issues right now. High awareness or high conscious state, it's going to be influenced by a lot of invisible factors. You're going to feel kind of a continuum of thought. You're going to feel that it requires a little bit more effort and attention to get to a state like this, because there's so many distractions, there's so many things that you've been primed to be triggered by. And once you start understanding that your story is not the structure of how you can actually move through life, your story is actually just nothing more than a math problem, and you can move and turn the page and create a new state of being. So this is going to involve mindfulness. We talked about mindfulness and meditation in the last show. Mindfulness is that state of higher consciousness that includes awareness and allowing thoughts to filter and pass through you. And this is very healthy. This is like taking a snapshot of frustration as it crosses your field, understanding it, seeing it, recognizing it, and allowing it to move through you. Now, it requires, it's a skill, right? It's something that you have to work with, like, anything in life that requires attention. This is going to be something that's going to be difficult at first to maintain a state of that awareness, but it's possible. Generally, most humans alternate between the low and the high thinking states. And then when we have provocateurs trying to trigger us and prime us back to that low state, that low vibration, the densities that create disturbance, we find that it's very difficult as well. So it's hard for you to recognize those with the sensory perceptions that you have, because they've really flooded the field with things that trigger your lower awareness and your fight or flight. So we have to start moving these and creating new neural networks and moving past some of this non-conscious stimulus that's on that lower density. And then we're going to do that through awareness, through mantra, through vibration, through binaural activation, through esophageal tones, like singing bowls, things like this, to learn to adapt and to buffer and to give you the space to have conversation within itself. So think of it like it's going to require mental effort to obtain the higher thinking, the higher awareness, but you'll be able to overcome that quite quickly. Hypnosis helps you to do that. Hypnosis works with the low state and actually can trigger and expand the high state. Self-awareness. Neurolinguistic programming works a lot with this as well. There's terms that you've heard, like with hypnotherapy, like disassociation and trance states, where people get suggestions, right? They're planted, they're primed with a suggestion. Tony Robbins, I believe, talks about priming. So sleep is in a sense, because you tap into like melatonin and some of the things that are also kind of like a self-induced hypnosis in your sleep. Your circadian rhythm is one of the natural influences that helps you to begin to tap into higher fields, higher consciousness. There's a lot of different states of sleep. We'll cover those at some point. One of the things that a lot of people are into right now is psychoactive drugs like LSD or DMT and hallucinogens. These are also activators. And then these are kinds of things that are starting to influence our field. We're starting to see the separation of these because of densities shifting. I like to think of it like your cell phone. When you're scrolling through Instagram, you're seeing multiple pieces of information. You're seeing pictures transition. So now when you're scrolling and you're using your finger, you're actually triggering a reformat of the pixels. The pixels are instantaneously changing with movement. So a lot of that is the same process that's going on with our consciousness. As the field of vision changes, our pixels, our programming, our physical self and spiritual self are altering the perception, the picture that we're creating with our experience. So there are literally 6 levels of consciousness here and now. The layers into this are, number 1, life happens to you. Life happens by you. Life happens within you. Life happens for you. Life happens through you. and life is you. So if you take some time and sit with those, life happens to you. Life happens by you. Life happens inside of you. Life happens for you. Life happens vicariously through you. And life is you. That takes on a whole new kind of cognitive relationship with your surroundings and your environment and the stimulus that's being channeled through this conscious being and experience. The first level of higher consciousness, life happens to you. This has really got a lot of information, and this is why it's such a big deal to be here. Because if you're honest with yourself and you start to think of it and you wake up one morning and you're like, wait, my heart is happy, my heart is light, I feel great. And then the next day you're unsettled, you get fired, you get sick, you get rejected, you get a broken heart. You start to understand that the more conscious you are, the more you're going to feel different segments of life, the more you're going to feel that life is flooding in. As you begin to shift your consciousness and you become more aware, you're going to feel the inconsistencies that are associated with old paradigm perception versus the new shift that's coming in. As we look at some of these other elements and some signs about how you might be shifting your consciousness and what you're experiencing, I like this quote by Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things, and it surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. I like to think of that in some ways when it comes to Star Wars. Sorry for the plane flying by. One of the things I'd like to focus on in this is you are not who you once were. And as we were talking about that, as we were learning that life happens to you, as you start to understand, as you look back in life, that, and this is when I was talking about relationships as well, you are not the same person. So when you're looking, like if you've broken up and you were in a relationship, and the person that you were dating is not in your life right now, but you're still longing for them and you're wondering if they're going to come back, and you're wondering, what'll happen if they do. The person that you loved is not coming back. So, and this is one of the things that you're going to start to understand as you start to shift the perception of consciousness and you start to move from the space of life happens to you and life happens by you. And this is that second level of the conscious scale when you start to understand that I'm creating this life. We don't see things as we are, we see them as we are. And then you start to understand, wait, if I'm not who I once was, if I'm not the person that was in my 5 years old, if I'm not the person that was 20 years old, if I'm not the person that was 30 years old, when I was a little immature, a little selfish, like I did a video a few years back called Bringing Sexy Back. I'm not that same person. That person exists solely as itself. And so therefore the perception of who I am now, you can't really know me now from the person that existed then. Now, if I hold on cringingly to that story and I repeat that and try to replicate that, what happens is I become antagonistic and aggressive, and I become depressive. I develop anxiety. This is the same thing, holding on to a structure that is no longer solid. So the past is not solid. The person that you loved that is no longer with you, that is walked away from you, or the job, etc., is no longer in existence. So hypothetically, when you think of it like this, the person that you broke up with last year, let's just say figuratively, that person today, when you say, are they thinking about me? No, they're actually not. Even if they thought about who they dated a year ago, it's not you today. So they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about the perception of someone you were a year ago. Same thing goes with you. And this is a very empowering place to start to observe where you're at and how to overcome some painful, traumatic losses and gain a new perspective in your life. And this is how you know that you are heading in towards this new enlightened state. This is about an ongoing process of evolution. This is going to continue. This is going to accelerate. And this is going to lead you into one of the other parts of this shift. And you know that you're shifting because you are motivated for what reason we don't necessarily know to change. You realize something is driving you to make a significant change in your life. Your intuition, your instinct is gearing you up. You are taking leaps of faith and acts of faith. Your body is really wanting to work with you. Your body's wanting to respond with you. Your body's wanting to kind of sit and say, hey, this is where we're at. Do you see what I'm doing? And this is when you are starting to go into that third state of consciousness. Life happens inside of you. So you start to realize that you're motivated because life is happening all around you. You're in alignment with it. You're feeling that I need to change. I want to revitalize. I want to connect. I want to know. I want to experience things. I want to change the pace at which I'm experiencing life. I want to feel the rush. I want to feel that this is my time. I want to harness motivation. I want to achieve certain things. I want to be aware of certain feelings. You are understanding that, yes, you are not your story. You're writing your story. One of the things that comes in this moment as well, as you learn life happens to you and you're at this level of consciousness, you begin to realize something very startling, that most of the time, rather than experiencing life, you think about it, you see it through the thoughts in your head, and you start to let that go. You realize that, wait, these are pacifiers. They are permeable. They don't give me solidity. I think that even Anais Nin said, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. You project your spells, your experience onto yourself and others rather than seeing what is. And this state of the shift is you're starting to see things as they are. Now, keep in mind, there is still external things at play because there's still low-level awareness activities and people and processes that going on, some unmaliciously, some maliciously, some on purpose, trying to place triggers and primers to keep you stationary. So this is a little bit of a struggle. This is where you have to start applying a little elbow grease to get where you want to go. Now we want to climb into that fourth level of higher consciousness where life happens for you, where you become curious and you become a little bit less reactive and you're a little bit more controlled. You might have an appearance of being detached, but you're actually not. You're very involved and very present. When you're present in this moment, you can appear detached, right? Because you're having realizations and rationalizations simultaneously with walking each step. There's nothing that's going to be ordinary. Everything's going to be extraordinary because you start to see that life is not really random. Your high intelligence starts to unfold and it puts you into this situation where you recognize synchronicity is actually a protocol. It's actually it's front and center. You're creating your space as you move forward. Now, I'm not talking about law of attraction. Don't get confused with that lie in that it's a low level vibration that's been put on the screen to make you entranced by materialistic things. I'm not saying that materialistic things are not meant for you, that it's not an enjoyable process, but that's not the higher intelligence to create a low level object to pacify your experience. We're moving up the ladder, Jacob's ladder. We're moving up the Kundalini. We're rising, right? So this is where you start to release a lot of the fear of life and death as well. And you start to gain a hyper level of focus. This is going to be also where you start to acquire tools like mantra meditation, emotional freedom technique, neuro-linguistic programming, self-hypnosis, binaural sounds, esophageal tones, using certain methods like singing bowls and sound healing, where you start using in dark therapy, you start using possible plant medicines, things like that. This is where you start to remove distractions, where you start to go behind the green curtain in the Emerald City. You start to realize that, hey, Dorothy had the shoes the whole time. Shit, I mean, she was always able to go home. So we're going home now. We're going to who we are really. We're leaving the figment and the fragment behind. We're creating no longer from illusionary. We're creating actually reality, and reality is actually quite exciting when you sit here. Reality has so much more potential than illusion, because when you create fantasy, it doesn't actually have tangible experience. So you're left feeling unfulfilled with the fantasy. So we're creating a reality which is really fulfilling, really tasty. It's like sitting down for a great dinner. So your priorities become clear. You don't waste time on the things that are unimportant. You act with clarity and purpose and intention. You become a mentor. You become a Jedi, right? You start to turn on your mental flashlight. You dial into things. You're able to spotlight things. You're seeing through things that were hidden before. You're able to turn each moment into an experience and see it very clearly and expand your consciousness. This leads you into that next level of creating and craving a more meaningful life. You're no longer satisfied by the status quo. Now think of success as you see it from a low level. That comes and shows up as a status quo event. Success is not status quo. It is something much more beyond that. It is something much more exciting. It's about tapping into unlimited abundance. It's about that godlike situation. It's about really seeing source. Source is unlimited. It's like being a multidisciplinary person or multidimensional being or a multiplanetary species. So what we're going into is this new meaning, this reading, writing like you never wrote before, experiencing the unusual and constantly feeding your mind with fuel, constantly feeding your body with fuel, understanding the value and the depth of nutrition on every level. You see, what you're listening to right now is also nutrition. It is something that comes in, it is nurturing. What you're dialed into and what you're listening to is nutritious to your soul. What you're speaking is nutritious to yourself and to those people that are part of your experience. What you're seeing is you're seeing visual nutrition. And when you start to understand how you gather information, you start to expand how you process it. And as you start to enhance the processing part of this in the shift, you start to expand the sensory perception. You start to involve clairaudience with hearing. You start to see beyond and go into clairsentience. You start to go into a telepathic state. You start to explore. And then we can start to play with remote viewing and placing synchronicities along your path. And this is when we start to reach out into that where we understand that life is not a random series of events. That's highly intelligent unfolding, right? It's highly intelligent and unfolding for you. That fifth level that life happens through you is very much here because you imagine life where you trust life implicitly, where you understand that you are curious and your heart is open and you're not struggling and you're experiencing and you can face deep challenges because you know that no matter the outcome, everything is actually on purpose and you're not reactionary. You're in the flow of things. You are in that vibrant flow of energy and life is actually flowing freely through you. And this allows you to be in the creative space. You're no longer judging the outcome based on alignment with a lower level of perception. You're able to see life much more different and much more bright and beautiful. Your senses are escalating, and this is where you start to tap into finding your higher purpose, and this is part of the shift. Part of the shift is that you are meant for great things. Your true self is destined for greatness. That this part of you, the sixth level of higher consciousness, life is you, right? All is well. Come here. Life is well. You are beginning to learn. You are not in the universe. You are the universe. You're an intrinsic part of the universe. That consciousness is about coming home, coming to that beautiful meadow, and that the more you live the truth that life is for you, the more you relax into the flow and the more you can see things. Now keep in mind, we're not here to shift the world. We're not here to change the world. We're not here to save the world. We're here to plant seeds. We are growers. We are sowers. We are creators. We plant seeds simultaneously every second with every way we move through life, with every perception and every projection and every piece of information we process. You're planting seeds. Now, your fruit is how you flourish in this life, no matter the situation, how you choose to be, no matter what's being directed to you. Can you change and can you change that energy that's coming in? Can you redirect it? Can you reproject? Are you a sculptor or are you being sculpted? And this is the truth of trust and how you evolve into that top layer of the universe where you realize that you are the storyteller and that the world is so small and that you have been paying attention to being part of someone else's story. And this is great because as we start to develop this and you find your higher purpose, you become aware of so many greater things about yourself. You start to shine brightly. You understand that the legacy is for the future, that you keep working towards the purpose of sharing your gift with humankind, and that no one suppresses you. No one shuts you off. If you perceive resistance, you don't return the resistance. You move through it. You move around it. You don't allow people to abuse you, but you always ask yourself, why are they here? What are they accomplishing? Because you start to think on a higher level. You're not necessarily analyzing all human behavior, but you're amazed by human behavior. And you develop this beautiful state of being, and you bring your attention to earth. And you're able to really transmute time and space when you start to meditate and when you start to tap into some of these techniques and these tools that really are very simple, a very simple process. Once you get direction, once you have the direction, you can find that home easily. So this is how we're moving forward. Remember, you're a community of 70 trillion cells, and you are literally pumping blood through 65,000 miles of arteries and veins. And I think it's good to remind ourselves exactly of the physicality of how everything is put together and how everything is brought on this page, which we call life. So this is how you know the shift is happening, and this is what it looks like. I'd like to just say this quote: you realize something very extraordinary is happening here, and there are no ordinary moments in your life. I feel that, when you realize that and you start to awaken and you start to see life in a deeper way, you start to increase the joy of your response ability. So it's your ability to respond is what that is. We confuse responsibility with our purpose is to serve others. But actually what's happening right now is service is also planting seeds. Because like I said before earlier, karma is literally a codependent consequence. And when we stop and we remove the codependency and we become independent and interdependent, and we realize that we're planting seeds, that the fruit on our tree is really a seed, and that the flourishment, the abundance is really a seed. Like they say, when you get somebody to invest in your company or your idea, it's seed money. So they have abundance, they have fruit, and they're giving you that fruit so you can flourish, but indirectly, you're planting a seed, and that will be future success. So you don't have to see success right now because the soil could be, it depends on the cycle, it depends on the season. As long as you plant it, the sun will shine, the light will come, and it will flourish some moment in time. Even like if you don't understand some of the things I'm saying right now, I've planted a beautiful seed from the fruit that I've experienced and I've shared today, and that seed will flourish at some point on your path. So this is the shift. This is where we're headed, and it's a beautiful space, and I'm so excited. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of this show. Please subscribe for future conversations. Go to Spotify for In Deep Shift. There's a lot of shows there. Follow me on social media. If you would like to get help and to get some good insight, go to my site, ryankeys.com, and subscribe down below. Click the bell beside it so you get notifications. Please share this. Plant one seed for me today. Like they say, plant a tree. Plant a seed so that we can sow this and we can beat the algorithm and we can begin to open and expand consciousness together.